Hi, I'm Jodie Hammond, a curriculum consultant for McGraw Hill. I also spent 20 years as a secondary school English teacher. I'm going to use this little video to give you a quick overview of our best-selling product, Corrective Reading. Corrective Reading is a direct instruction intervention designed for older learners who've fallen behind their chronological reading age by 2 or more years. When delivered with fidelity, this programme helps students to catch up fast, whilst also boosting their self-esteem. The chances are, if you're watching this video, you're already well aware of the problem with literacy levels that we have in schools. And given that over a quarter of pupils leave primary school having not met the required standards in reading, these pupils are always going to struggle to access the curriculum in secondary school. I take calls all day, every day from senior school leads who need help with Key Stage 3 pupils who still have reading ages of perhaps 6, 7 and 8-year-olds. The DfE's reading framework of 2023 reminds us that pupils who can't read well enough don't have full access to the curriculum. Those who fail to learn to read early on often start to dislike reading. They read less than others and less often, and do not accumulate the background knowledge of vocabulary from reading that their peers do. The word rich get richer, while the word poor get poorer. We can see from the quote on the screen that Ofsted want you to develop a coordinated strategy for struggling readers which moves beyond the tokenistic. I often speak to teachers who worry that they can't take their struggling readers out of the main curriculum in order to focus on developing their reading skills, but in fact Ofsted and the Department for Education give you express permission to do so. And I've put a document together which quotes both Ofsted's read strategy and the DfE's reading framework. Both encourage you to remove pupils from the main curriculum for a short, intensive period. They want you to help pupils with a programme which is age appropriate, designed for older learners, taught in small groups of similar abilities in bite-sized steps, with continual assessment. And they want you to apply a diagnostic test so that learners can start at exactly the right stage for them. In this video, I'll show you how Corrective Reading meets all of these requirements. There are two strands to the Corrective Reading programme, Decoding and Comprehension. Decoding is about learning to read the words and sounds on the page, and Comprehension will be for those pupils who perhaps have sound decoding skills but very limited functional literacy, so pupils who comprehend very little of what they read. Let's talk first about decoding, which must be prioritised because pupils who can't read the words on the page have very little chance of understanding them. So the decoding programme is an SSP programme. That's a systematic synthetic phonics programme, but it's one which is designed specifically for older learners, and it can be used with adults. If we look at the list of characteristics here, you might recognise some of your pupils. Maybe they make frequent word identification errors, maybe they add or omit words, maybe they confuse high frequency words. Decoding suits those who have a poor grasp of grapheme-phoneme relationships, or read laboriously slowly, or maybe can't comprehend things because they aren't reading the words right. Here's a sample decoding lesson from Corrective Reading Level B2. Students might begin the lesson with some word attack skills. So here they're encouraged to think about suffixes and word conversions. Then in the middle of the lesson, perhaps they move to some group reading, and you'll see that the extracts get longer as their confidence increases. And the lesson might finish with some paired reading where pupils listen to each other and record the errors the other person is making, and they'll also do some independent work in their workbooks. Perhaps you have learners who have secure decoding skills but so little experience of reading that their comprehension skills are lacking. This makes accessing English GCSEs almost impossible. We can address this with our comprehension strand of corrective reading. Your learners might be unable to follow multi-step directions. They might exhibit poor auditory memory and statement repetition skills. They might lack the analytical skills required to process arguments, have limited vocabulary, or perhaps seem to lack background knowledge. This is a sample comprehension lesson from level B1. Students would begin this lesson with some work on definitions and word analogies. Then they'd move into some work on the parts of speech. Then there's a section on story writing. And in the bottom right of the screen, you can see there's the teacher's copy of the workbook pages. And you'll see there's all kinds of wider learning built into the programme. As part of working on their comprehension skills, students will cover things like parts of the human body. So corrective reading's benefits stretch a long way beyond their performance in English lessons. One important aspect of all DI programmes is that you must run placement tests with all pupils to ensure that they start at just the right level for them. These learners don't have time to waste on work that's too easy, and it's crucial that we don't put them at a level that's too high or we set them up to fail again, which is the last thing they need. So you can find our placement tests online, or your consultant can send you a copy completely free. The instructions for running the tests are very clear and explicit, but please do read them carefully. It's well worth spending the time needed to get this element right. Once you've placement tested all the pupils you're targeting, you can begin to sort out your groupings. Each pupil will be placed at either level A for the most intensive intervention, level B1, B2 or C. For direct instruction, please group the pupils by ability, not necessarily by age. So you can have, for instance, pupils from year 7, 8 and 9 all together in a level B1 group. The group sizes are outlined in the chart here, and you'll see that where the level of intervention is the greatest, the groups are smallest. So a recommended group size of 6 to 8 pupils for level A, 8 to 10 pupils for B1. You can have 12 to 16 in a group for B2 and up to 25 in a level C group. The number of lessons in the programme is also shown here in the chart, and you'll see that there is a fast cycle option for comprehension at levels A and B1, but this isn't something you can just opt into to get it over quicker. Pupils do need to be placed into the fast track cycle by the placement test. So the placement test will identify pupils who maybe have weak comprehension skills but are likely to learn faster. Please ask me for details, happy to talk you through it. Direct instruction is a long established and highly respected method of instruction. If you have time, please do look up Project Follow Through, which was the largest educational study ever undertaken. Direct instruction ranked as the most successful teaching methodology in every single area that was measured. It's a form of explicit instruction which has a number of key factors in its design, delivery and documentation. Whilst you might find other programmes which mimic the style of delivery, they won't have the curriculum design and documented evidence that DI has. The first thing many people are aware of is that teachers teach from a script. Before you write this off as somehow removing teacher autonomy or skill, let me explain a bit about the script to you. The script ensures that teacher talk is kept to an absolute minimum, and that instruction is clear and explicit for the entirety of the lesson. It also ensures that the language used is absolutely consistent. So if you have a cover teacher in one day, or if you have high staff turnover in your school, or a variety of part-time staff, every adult who picks up the script and delivers the lesson will use exactly the same language of instruction, and this is absolutely invaluable for learners, especially SEN or EAL learners. It significantly reduces the cognitive load for the student. The curriculum design is such that only 15 to 20% of each lesson is new material. There's a constant cycle of review to ensure that pupils learn to mastery. This means students don't simply learn to the test, but that the learning moves into their long-term memory for secure learning. Every 10 lessons is a mastery test, and pupils will almost always attain 80, 90 or 100% in every test because you're only ever testing them on something they've mastered. This is fabulous for building self-esteem in these learners who've probably never scored anything like this in a reading test before. Reducing teacher talk means there's plenty of time for student responses in the lesson, and a pupil will typically give about 100 responses during each DI lesson. This is facilitated partly through group responses. A pupil is never put on the spot to answer individually before the learning has been assured through a group response. So it's not about sing-song or droney responses from a group, because often these are a way to hide and seek reassurance from those around you and follow their cue. The teacher needs to manage the lesson so that everyone answers at once. The teachers can then ask for individual responses once mastery has been gained, which means pupils develop confidence and get plenty of practice. Incorrect responses are always corrected instantly and calmly without singling anyone out, and the whole class then will hear the correct response, which is then retested before you move on. All of this is explained in the series guide and will be explained by your trainer. In order to keep the lesson moving at pace, the teacher also needs to develop a series of signals which are used to build in thinking time for the learners. The script will direct the teacher to signal visually when the students are all looking at you, by point touch when they're looking at the board, or audibly when they're looking at their books. All DI scripts follow conventions. The script keeps the language clear and consistent and has huge benefits for students. It also saves the teacher precious planning time with meticulously sequenced and scaffolded lessons. The only preparation needed is to read the lesson beforehand and maybe a little practice in front of the mirror until delivery becomes natural. As you can see in the screen, whatever the teacher says is written in blue, and you can see teacher talk is kept to a minimum. The anticipated response from the students will be in italics. Anything the teacher needs to do, like when they're required to signal, is in brackets. And a tick mark on the page is a prompt to look around the class and check that everyone is looking at the right thing in the right spot on the right page. Words in bold are designed just for you to emphasise with your voice, and teachers are encouraged to keep to the script as much as possible, but it doesn't mean you have to be robotic in your delivery. You bring it to life, just like an actor brings to life a script that they're given. Now, this detail can be a tricky conversation with teachers when I first meet with them. The programme is designed to be taught 4 to 5 times a week for 45 minutes to an hour each time. Now, I know that for year 4, 5 and 6 in primary school, it can be easy to implement a daily corrective reading lesson, but I do appreciate that at Key Stage 3 this can be a lot harder. However, for learners to make fast, efficient progress, you do need to find at least 4 sessions a week. One key element of DI is that only 15 to 20% of each lesson is new material. The rest is review and distributive practice. If you only deliver this 3 times a week, pupils will make progress, but at a much slower rate, and they're likely to become frustrated. Let's just take a second to look at what the DfE and Ofsted have to say about the problem of timetabling. The DfE say that pupils will make fast progress if they receive a few months of intensive daily teaching at their specific level. And Ofsted acknowledge that schools have to make difficult decisions about when to timetable additional reading lessons, but they quote a teacher who says, "Sometimes we have to put literacy over something else. It's controversial, but they see it as an ethical judgment as a school that in terms of access to wider curriculum, pupils benefit from having the focus on reading." Direct instruction has been around since the 1970s, which means we've got over 50 years of research and field testing to prove that this is an effective and meaningful way to teach. If you're interested in reading some of the evidence, do get in touch and we can point you in the right direction. Whilst much of this comes from the US, we have a growing body of evidence from the UK, and we can send you some recent case studies from UK schools. This one, for instance, shows the reading age improvement over 1 year from a UK school cohort. You'll see that pupils' reading ages increased by between 2.5 years to almost 8 years in just 1 year of corrective reading instruction. So once you have your pupil numbers, please get in touch and we can help you draw up a quotation for your starting materials. The main expenses in delivering corrective reading do come in the first year of delivering the programme, because you need to buy 1 copy of teacher materials for each group. This is a spiral-bound hard copy of the script and will last you for years. Some levels of corrective reading also require a student book, which in the UK we would typically call a textbook. It's called a student book in our lingo. These are hard copy and again will last you for years. You will also need to invest in some training, and please get in touch to discuss this. The only ongoing costs of the programme are for the student workbooks. You order these each year. These are consumable because the students write into them. No scrappy bits of paper, everything goes in the workbook, and the workbooks stay in the classroom, and pupils can use these to track their progress through the mastery tests. We also recommend everybody buys a copy of the series guide, which covers all levels of corrective reading and guides you through the programme. I'd like to finish with the words of some teachers who are delivering corrective reading in their classrooms. You'll hear their passion for this programme.
We also find with direct instruction that students learn to learn because of the way the programs are scheduled, because of the way they're delivered, students pick up skills that then they can go on and use them in their other lessons. And quite often we'll find the science teachers, the geography teachers, even the art teachers and PE teachers will come forward and say, actually, do you know what? That student suddenly started putting their hand up a little bit more, started answering a few more questions, started participating a little bit more, even being a little bit more confident. And that's one of the biggest things about direct instruction. Not only does it show them how to be successful, it changes their own self-perception. So instead of feeling that they are the bad egg, that they can't achieve, that there's no point in trying, these students absolutely transform in front of your eyes. It's the most amazing thing to be able to watch, where they suddenly start to believe in themselves.
Sharon, please can you tell me why direct instruction works so well with SEN pupils?
It is fabulous for all students, but very specifically for students with disabilities, and depends on the disability, but it's fabulous for regardless of the disability. It is because it sets students up for success. It's placement tested, so it's working right at their original starting point, so in their zone of proximal development, so they're going to get that success. Broken down into these fine sequences. What we know, the neurotypical brain needs 24 to 40 repetitions of something, but a student who has got some diverse needs might need at least 90 to 120 repetitions of something. So my question would be, if you're not using direct instruction, what are you using? Because these programs, not only do they give you that number of repetitions, but it's done verbally, so the student is once again even more set up for success. You can error correct really quickly. It's going to be fast because it's not going to be slowed down by having to do so much writing. I could go on and on and on forever. It's absolutely fantastic for students with disabilities.
So if you think corrective reading might be just what your pupils need, do please get in touch. I can draw you up a quotation for materials, I can put you in touch with some trainers, or I can also direct you to some of our other direct instruction resources which exist for spelling, writing and maths. I look forward to talking to you.